Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Uh, I'm out and about running some errands and it is sprinkling. I love a good rainy day. I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm having a moment where I'm just having some awareness over the idea that we're like, I don't know, maybe like a week and a half away from it being March. Uh, and so I, how does this happen? It feels like depending on what's happening in my life, dude, things either move glacially slow or they just are like sped up. I'm feeling like this time of my life is sort of sped up. I don't know. When things were really very difficult, it felt like, oh, when will this life be over? If I'm being honest, guys, trigger warning, okay? I really felt like I didn't have any hope, anything to look forward to, nothing that I felt proud of, nothing that brought me joy, not really. Okay. And so that's a real thing. Okay. I was deep in the throes of depression, coupled with anxiety. It turns out, dude, depression, anxiety, these are very common comorbidity to ADHD. In particular, if you don't know that you have it, you're not in the awareness, and so you're not doing anything to manage it. Uh, okay, and in my case, I really believe it's also autism, which makes me very sensitive to all kinds of like input, all kinds of input. Okay, and so I was just in those moments feeling not like myself. My masculine and feminine energies were not well balanced. For most of my life, I was strongly in my masculine and really neglected my feminine because I didn't understand it. I was like, duh, I, what? It just sort of felt like I was more comfortable around the boys in the sense of like, it felt like things were a little bit more straightforward. There wasn't as much like social code to have to navigate and figure out. But as I got older, dude, it sort of felt like, well, I can't be friends with the boys. If I'm friends with the boys, the girls just are gonna hate me, and they're not gonna want to be my friends. And so I had to figure out. It just feels like at every stage I've had to figure out what my gender expression is and what my internal gender self is. Okay, and so I didn't grow up with all the terms that we have now. And personally, I am so grateful for the terms, dude. I feel like it is a mercy because it helps me to understand myself in a better way, right? Have a deeper understanding of who I am and what I'm here to do in the world. And having that sort of self awareness and self acceptance is sort of key. And so if I were a person who were like fighting against the terms, you know what I mean? Like really feeling like, what the fuck? What are these terms about? Why do we need them? That kind of energy. But if I was that person, but I was myself, who I am, right? Knowing my entire life that I've had these internal conversations about gender. Essentially, fighting against the terms is really just a matter of fighting against the self. Does that make sense? It's like there's some sort of like self judgment, self hatred going on in that case. Okay, this is not like a general, like all around, you know, judgment that I'm making about society as a whole or humans in general. It's just like I can't imagine being a person who knew that I had the conflict of my own gender and was also resisting and prejudiced against the terms that are quite useful. Okay, that I have. I don't know. I guess there's a part of me that feels like if we are in a place where we are that detached from ourselves, dude, where we want to just make judgments. And the thing about judgments, dude, is, evolutionarily speaking, there are purposes for these things. There are reasons. So it's not me sitting here and going like, what the fuck? Why do people have to be so prejudiced? I have my own prejudices. Things that every so often I feel like the universe presents me with and goes, what about this though? Okay. We need to talk about this. And in those moments I go, oh my gosh, like, oh shit. Okay. I don't think of myself as a perfect person. Okay. But it's still difficult to really look at the self, look myself in the eye and go, who the fuck are you, dude? What do you stand for? What are you here to do in this world? What does it mean? And I feel like these are things that I have to periodically ask myself. Okay. Be connected to the self because it is so easy to lose touch with the self. I really what I want to do is I want to share a little bit about myself. Nothing new there, right? But I really want to share about um, when I first got a divorce. Okay, I was having a conversation. Actually, I left a voicemail for one of my best friends. Okay, and I was telling her like something that had happened and like how I was really struggling with my feelings. Okay, about like a conversation that I had had or like a certain part of the relationship, of that divorced marriage or something. I cannot remember what it was. I remember where I was. I was in the middle of a Target, creating this voice note essentially to send to my best friend to say, dude, this happened. My feeling is I am angry, but I can't connect to the feelings of anger. And she sent me a voice note right back and she was like, what do you mean? Like, can you explain that to me? Like you're saying that you have the anger, but you don't feel angry. And I was like, yes, exactly. I have an understanding, like in my brain, I know. Like I have an awareness. I am angry about this. But in my feelings, I was so detached from everything that I felt like I cannot connect to those feelings. The truth of the matter is, I can look back now and I can go, I was pissed. Okay, certain aspects of our connection, I was pissed. But I had repressed those feelings for so long that I I guys, I couldn't access them. I couldn't access them. Okay. I remember the night before I left that home that we shared together, the night before, I was exhausted. We all were. Okay. But I, I, I tried to go to sleep. I think it was like 11 o'clock, midnight. I don't remember. And I couldn't relax. I couldn't I couldn't fall asleep, okay? And all of a sudden, my body went into full body shakes. And I was so angry. All of a sudden, all of this anger that I had repressed came over me and I was physically shaking. Okay. Like really shaking, you guys. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. And so then the next morning when I woke up, I said to my previous partner, hey, I know we're going to be busy today and I'm going to be taking off tonight. And, you know, but sometime tomorrow, can we talk? I have these things that I need to tell you. There were 3 specific things that I needed to say. Hey, do you remember when this happened? A million years ago? Do you remember this thing when this happened 6 months ago? Do you remember? Like, I need to tell you, I am angry about those things. I'm angry. And so my anger and me connecting, that anger was there, dude. I could have died on that road, on the way down to Southern California. I would have died with that anger in my heart, regardless of whether I was in the awareness or not. That anger was living inside of me. Okay. Just because I was pretending and actively working against those feelings doesn't mean that they weren't there. They were there. They were a part of me. Okay. And so connecting to those feelings of anger, I'm not going to lie, dude, connecting to those feelings of rage, it took a minute. It took a minute to get, even after we had that conversation, you know, and of course, hindsight is 2020. Now that the whole marriage has broken apart, you know, we can have conversations and look at things in a different way, right? Um, my previous partner, essentially, his reaction to that conversation was just tears. He was like, "I'm so sorry. I understand," and I really feel like he did. I really honestly feel like he did. And we had several conversations after that. We haven't talked in a long time, okay, and that's the correct thing. But we still had things that we needed to kind of undo, that we were still connected in certain ways. And so every once in a while we would have to have these conversations. And usually it was a big conversation. I'm sure that if we got together and talked today, we would have more things to say. But I feel good and surrendered that we don't need to do that, dude. Again, he is on his own path. I am on my own path. Everything is fine. But the point is that we sometimes do that. We're not even in the awareness of how much we are, dude, what I want to say is causing our own suffering. Okay. Not because that doesn't take responsibility away from anybody else. No, 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 no. Okay. But when it comes to our own lives, who we are, dude, we may be in connections where we feel like, oh, I'm so close to this person, they're my best friend, they're my soulmate. You could call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, dude, we are born and we die alone unless we are twins. Okay. But even still, okay, we are our own person. Okay. And so we have to take accountability for our own life, to get to a place where you come to peace and surrender and even forgiveness. Okay. For those things that have happened, forgiveness for the self, forgiveness to the universe, forgiveness to that person that may have hurt us. It feels like, on the front end, it may feel like it's such a cop out. It may seem that way. Like, well, if I just let this strong feeling go, then it's like I'm losing witness to the events that happened. And I was hurt. Okay. I was hurt in those events. They were real. They were true. But it's not about that, dude. And I think that's why a therapist is so powerful. Okay, they're just a person. Okay, there's nothing magical happening there other than it's a regulated person, dude, who is there to witness. They're there to bear witness to the life story. Okay, it's somebody else. It's a neutral third party who can go, I see, I understand, and just having that witness is powerful, dude. It means that we don't have to carry around these stories for the rest of our lives. I don't want to carry these stories for the rest of my life. Okay? It almost feels like it just taints the whole story. And that's not the whole story of that connection. It's not. Okay? And so working those things through makes it so that I am a clean vessel, dude, as clean as possible. Okay? So that I can be open to accept life, the good and the bad as it comes, dude. I am me, myself, my own soul, my own heart, my own nervous system is a safe vessel, dude, to accept life and process it as it comes along, the good and the bad. I hope that makes sense, you guys. It's so important. Anyway, that's all for today. Until next time. See y'all.